trying to sort of stay healthy, whether that's eating or fit or just mentally wise during this super busy time that's upcoming. And some of you are already started calving time, which obviously happens this time of the year too, which is also super stressful. But seeding and planting 2021 is a busy time of the year, and we got to keep all these things top of mind to keep that right frame as we try to get all the things done we need to get done. It's a super stressful time. We're going to address that today. Let's do our countdown and then get right to it. This is RealAg Live. And welcome to RealAg Live, everybody. I'm your host today, Shaun Haney. I'm really looking forward to today's discussion. It's a really important one. It's something that isn't directly related to what seed you're putting in the ground or how to pull that calf, but it's related a little bit to the health. And there's physical health, there's mental health. We're going to cover a lot of that here today with some of our friends that we've done interviews with in the past. We've got some great clips. So when I say in the promo, Shaun Haney and friends, some of those friends sometimes are in an interview and sometimes they are people we've talked to from the realagriculture.com library. We're going to hear today from a farmer from Southern Alberta, Shaun Stanford. Got some great thoughts on awareness. We've got Marilyn Smith, nutritionist, one of my favorite interviews of all time. We pulled that one out of the vault way back when. Jay and I had to go into the archive. We could not find it on the site. As well, we'll hear from Alberta farmer Gary Chambers as well, talking about how you can turn some of the stuff around the farm into a gym. So if you have any feedback, comments, questions, would love to hear from you. You could send me an email. I'm used to the radio promo. You could send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com, or you can enter your question or comment in the box, whether you're watching on YouTube, Twitter, or Facebook. I'm going to share a little bit of sort of my experience last night. So getting exercise is supposed to be relaxing, right? You're supposed to sort of take a bit of the edge off, get your mind on some other stuff. And so last night I was doing some work late, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna take the dogs for a walk. And we have two dogs of different sizes, and I thought I want to take both of them for a walk at the same time. I'm gonna be super aggressive or adventurous. So what I did is we went out and we're gonna do this loop and walked out by the University of Lethbridge and then through the neighborhood, and we got out to this really super busy intersection. And there's a traffic circle there. There's a big Circle K, so it's a busy spot as people are trying to get through the west side of Lethbridge. And like I said, this is supposed to be relaxing. Well, as we entered, I pressed the button as we're going to enter the traffic circle to cross, and lights start flashing to tell the cars that, hey, you know what? Slow down, vehicles, or stop. Yield to the pedestrian. And as I do that, vehicles start to stop. Then what happens is I realize that the small dog, Gus, has wrapped himself around the pole like twice somehow, like really fast. And so I got vehicles stopped. This is like when you're trapped in the middle of like a viral Instagram video. This is exactly what happened to me last night. And I untangle Gus, so we get across to the middle section. We're talking like a little bit of a concrete structure to stand on before you enter the other side of the road. And traffic is backed up. I'm going to say like 4 or 5 cars deep. So everybody's watching all different sort of directions here. We get to the middle. I look at the dog on the left, which is Gibby, make sure she's okay. Look back to the right, and Gus has wrapped himself. Gus likes poles. He wrapped himself around again. So now I'm trying to untangle and doing all this kind of stuff. And then as I get Gus unwrapped from the pole, then what happens is I realize that the other dog, as I've taken my eyes off him or her, has pulled herself out of the collar and has run across the road now, across the highway. So that was the fun. Supposedly it was supposed to be like this sort of like mental break from having to get away from some work, and then boom, it's like this has turned into the most stressful evening that could possibly be. Is now I'm chasing one of my dogs across the west side of Lethbridge down the path, trying to prevent her from going into oncoming traffic. So not all exercise is stress-free. Let's just say that. And I have reached an age where going for a walk is considered exercise. I just want to make that note as well. Okay, what's really, really important when it comes to physical or mental health is awareness. I'm going to play our first clip here. It is with Shaun Stanford. He's a farmer from southern Alberta, from McGrath, which is just south of Lethbridge here. And he makes some good comments in an interview with Kara Oosterhuis about the awareness of issues. Let's play our first clip.
Well, I can understand how people would start to be feeling burnt out about hearing about this all the time. It's always mental health this and whatever, but it's really important, I think, to keep the conversation going, whether it's talking about mainstream mental health issues that people are having, or if it's something super specific about, different challenges that farmers have in the ag industry that nobody else has. We are a bit of a different breed of people, and we need to find our own ways and our own answers to be able to overcome some of these challenges. So I think it's super important we keep the conversation going.
Absolutely. And one of the things you highlighted was the importance of taking care of yourself before you're able to take care of others. Can you expand on that a bit?
Yeah, so I think it's important that you have some gas in your own tank before you try to give some to somebody else, because if you're tapped out, if you're exhausted emotionally and physically, you're no good to anybody else. So I think it's really important that you take care of yourself both physically and mentally so that you're able to help others along the way. If you're just trying to give, some bad advice or terrible advice, even if you're not in a good place yourself, that's not going to help anybody at all.
So what are some of the resources you use to help yourself go forward?
I've got a few things I use. So I talk to some really good friends either daily or weekly. Try to keep in touch with them, and we keep each other in check to make sure that we're all thriving as we should be. Also, there's a ton of resources out there through my family physician. So I talk to my doctor, and he either helps me with some medication or he'll point me towards a specialist that can help me with some of my issues. FCC also has a really good book. So Farm Credit Canada, they put out, it's called Rooted in Strength, and there's a ton of good information in there to help people, either find out if they have an issue or not, or maybe if there's different resources or tools that they can use to be able to get themselves better as well.
Yeah, some great stuff there from Shaun Stanford. If you have any questions or comments, make sure you put them in the box, whether you're watching on YouTube, Twitter, or Facebook. Kara points out, I always admire people that are willing to share their experiences. It's not easy. No, I would agree. Absolutely. Good point, Kara. It's not. Hello, Alan. Good to see you, buddy. I think that's a really good point by Kara. Is that and at the time, Shaun Stanford was one of the first people I think that kind of stepped out there. It's become a little bit more socially acceptable in the farm community, I think, to talk about some of these things. One of the most impactful people talking about this that I've ever encountered. I'm trying to remember the exact details of the story, but we did an on location in Regina, Saskatchewan at Agribition. This is a couple years ago for the radio show. And it was all about mental health and health awareness. And we had 3 experts on a panel on the stage. And what was really interesting was the suicide came up, and a farmer stood up out of the crowd and mentioned that he had been considering recently taking his life, and that he wanted help from one of the panelists. So, boy, that absolutely just I will never forget the chill that I had up my spine that day, and hopefully that show made a difference for that gentleman and helped him with some of the things that he was going through for sure. Sharon asking, what was the FCC booklet? It's called Rooted in Strength, as Kara points out, Sharon. So you have to talk to your local FCC rep if you want a copy of that. For sure. So a couple people wondering about my dog, how I got the dog back. My story at the beginning. Well, I mentioned how the dog got off the leash and how I was chasing it down University Drive into oncoming traffic. But I eventually tricked her by laying down in the grass, and I coaxed her over, and I then tackled her and got the leash on and tightened it. Ooh, it was a pretty scary thought. So yes, once again, exercise can be hard on your stress level as well. So, hey, listen, we've identified the fact that there are obviously a lot of things happening in agriculture can be stressful. But what about coping with that stress? Everybody has a different mechanism. What works for them? Let's play our second clip. Shaun talks about exactly that, how he copes with stress. Here's Shaun Stanford.
So when I'm stuck on the sprayer, luckily I have phone service most places, so I'm on the Twitter box all the time. I get to find all kinds of nonsense there. When I'm filling my sprayer up, I'll go for a walk around a little bit while it's filling with water, or try to stretch a bit. If you're filling the air seeder, climb up and down the ladder a couple times, stretch your muscles out. Just having a little bit of exercise, as little as it is, maybe for only 15, 20 minutes or something, that makes a big difference when you're sitting in the cab for hours and hours on end. And when there is days off, when I get a break, like if it's too windy to spray or too wet to spray, I'll find a couple buddies and we'll go golfing and have some beers and try to blow off some steam and really reset yourself and recharge your batteries so you can keep going the next day.
And can you touch on the importance of taking care, like you highlighted earlier, taking care of yourself, but also recognizing that what might help me won't help you?
Yeah, definitely. That's actually something I learned a bit from you, to tell you the truth. That article you wrote was actually really good. So I hate running. Some people love running. I like to mountain bike. Some people hate the mountain bike. I need to do what's important for me and what makes me happy and makes me feel good, or else I'll just be more miserable if I'm trying to do something else that makes someone else happy. So everybody needs to find their little things. Some people love to talk to people. Some people don't like to talk to anyone. So everybody has a little bit of different recipe, I guess you could say, for what they need to make themselves feel better. So don't feel like you need to fit the mold, because there really isn't a mold of how people should get themselves to the place they need to be.
Good points there from Shaun Stanford. Of course, you can find all this footage at realagriculture.com. But he brings up a good point. What works for you to manage stress and reduce some of that stress is different than what maybe works for me. Running sounds terrible. That sounds like an awful way to reduce stress, if you ask me. And I also think of like people that recharge as an extrovert or people that recharge as an introvert. So it may surprise you a little bit to know that, I spend the entire week talking to people, doing interviews, being on programs like this, talk. when it comes to the weekend, I can turn into a bit of I recharge as an introvert. I don't mind things like reading, just sort of hanging out in my own head and chilling out, and don't need to necessarily talk to people on for every minute of the day. So everybody's sort of different. You got to find what works for you. That's a key component of all of this for sure. I want to bring up again that book that Shaun talked about is called Rooted in Strength by Farm Credit Canada. So encourage you to check it out. Well, let's move on from the awareness portion, and let's move on to more of eating right. Okay, so we got a great clip here. We're going to play it in a second. This is, I think, one of the things that's the hardest for farmers to sort of figure out, is the fact that, especially when it comes to planting time, okay, you are spending long hours sitting in a seat that is quite comfortable. Those are very, very long days. And honestly, sometimes boredom kind of sets in. Like, the first day it's like, hey, we are planting. This is awesome. Been looking forward to this so much. Oh man, this is so great. This is fantastic. By about day 21, you're like, okay, this can end. I can move on to something else. And so you can only listen to so many radio stations. Of course, you're listening to RealAg radio every day. We got that. Don't worry about it. I got you. But there's a lot of other hours in the day where, yeah, it's a real challenge, and boredom is setting in. And one of the ways you fight boredom is by eating. And who has not been in that experience where you pack a lunch, you're proactive, and you have everything in your lunchbox eaten by 10 a.m. We have all been there. It happens. Absolutely. So nutrition is something that I think is very, very difficult in those busy times like planting and harvest. Spraying is another example. In terms of coping with stress, Alan says, for me, it's going online and listening to you guys. Hey, appreciate that, Alan, very, very much, for sure. Let's listen to our next clip. And, it has to do with nutrition in the sense that people put a lot of pressure on themselves to live to this standard. Like if you listen to some health podcasts, you go to some websites, there's some pretty strict diet guidelines. To be honest, those are a huge turnoff for me, not realistic. I like something like a pint of beer or a glass of wine at night, or once in a while, dip into Mickey D's and get a burger, right? So I don't know. I have a hard time living by some of those strict sort of diets. Figure probably shows it, but that's the realities. And our next guest is Marilyn Smith. We talked to her back at, I don't know what farm tech this was. It may have been like 2017, 2018. She is one of my favorite health people to talk to. She is so funny and just enjoys life. And she's, when you talk about enjoying life, food's a part of that, and you have to have flexibility. So here's Marilyn Smith. You believe in moderation.
I believe in inclusiveness.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Because, I don't remember who said this, and I'm stealing their quote, so I feel bad that I'm not going to, give them credit for it. But the deal is that whatever you choose to eat is your diet. So whatever that diet is, you have to be willing to do that forever. It's a lifestyle. And so my lifestyle is I eat a ton of fruits and vegetables. I eat a ton of heart-healthy food. Everything is delicious, but I make room for booze and chocolate and birthday cake, and I don't feel bad about it because it's life.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If you don't make things those kinds of foods inclusive, then you feel guilty, and then you get this whole other psychological kind of thing, and then you're a bad person, and then it goes on.
So if I love a very, very good stout, like a pint of beer, right?
I'm a Guinness girl.
Oh,
there you go.
High five. Good.
Oh,
so,
yes. Yeah.
If I tried to totally exclude it,
yeah. You'd want it more.
I would want it more. That's right.
It's totally been proven. And so, I think that's one of the reasons I like Weight Watchers if you're trying to lose weight, because they make foods inclusive. I mean, they give you a point. And so I don't have treats every single day. I mean, when I grew up, you got a treat if you got, like the Nobel Peace Prize.
Right.
It wasn't for oh, you tied your shoes. Good for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's a cake,
Here's a cake.
Here's a cake. No, so I'm great with treats, because if you make them a forbidden food, especially for kids, then all of a sudden they're going to be sneaking them, and then that's a whole other psychological spin. So yeah, drink in moderation. Guys, you're allowed 2 drinks a day. Women 1. You can't stockpile, so you can't have 10 on Friday, and I can't have 5 on Friday, and it's not Friday. Oh, it's not even Friday.
Crap.
Anyway, so crap.
how awesome is Marilyn Smith? She brings up a great, it's life, right? And Brian puts it very well here. I think we're all being honest. Any diet that totally excludes beer is totally excluded by me. I concur. Marilyn just said, and she's the expert. Marilyn just said guys can have 2 drinks a day. So there you go. We've settled that. We're all good. But I had a buddy that didn't do the fundraiser for the Canadian Cancer Society where he had a dry February, and he raised some money for a very, very good cause, but he purely tortured himself for the entire month. You speak my language, Brian Voth. Absolutely. So, I think Marilyn brings up a really good point there in the sense that an attitude around the whole thing is that it's all in moderation. So, it's not about it's not about living by the strictest of diets. You're not trying to become some sort of competitive bodybuilder. You're just trying to live a freaking healthy lifestyle the best you possibly can. So, should you take that big 2-liter bottle of Coke with you? Maybe not. Maybe downsize a little bit. Water being something that's super, super important for sure. And make sure you're incorporating things like that, reducing your sugars, blah, 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 blah. And I'm no nutritionist, but these are just things I think that we all know about that we sometimes get a little bit, we avoid. And when you're talking long hours, probably consuming a whole bunch of heavy, some of those snacks probably are going to make you even more tired. And here's the other one. I once had a nutritionist say, I think it would be good for you if you backed off on the coffee. Full stop, not doing that. You're out. You think the whole conversation about booze and whether or not that kind of diet, the no coffee diet, it's a hard stop for this guy. This cowboy ain't drinking that kind of diet at all. I'm all about the coffee for those of you that know me well. Okay, so we covered now awareness, we've covered nutrition, and we've heard from Marilyn Smith we can be flexible on nutrition. Now we're going to talk about trying to do some exercise. We heard from Sean Stanford there earlier. One of the things that he does to cope with stress is, when he's refilling the sprayer, he walks around it, gets a little bit of exercise. I had a person tell me once that, what they try to do is they try to walk around the farm and get exercise that way instead of taking the quad all over the place, things like that. I think it's those are little things you can do to try to just get the blood flowing at least a little bit. Kara has a comment here. I would think there's a comparison between sitting on the tractor and gaining weight the same way as people have struggled physically through COVID. It's a good point, Kara. Absolutely. Where people are just not getting out and about and stuck in their house and stuck on the couch and just watching another series on Netflix and binging through that, right? I think you're right. There is a lot of comparisons there for sure. Let's listen to a clip from the Fit Farmer podcast with Gary Chambers, where he talks about how you can, you don't solve all your problems by just making sure you have a treadmill in the house. It's just not that simple. Here we're talking on-farm fitness.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think that everybody shares in the fact that, the treadmill becomes their wife's most expensive drying rack and, in the basement. And, I think all of us who are health conscious probably have more fitness equipment than, we care to admit that's fallen to the wayside. In fact, almost a year and a half ago, I purged a lot of the equipment from my home gym to actually make it more simple and create space in it. And a lot of the big items, the Bowflexes and those type of things, they disappeared. Mm-hmm. And I maintained some simple weights, a very good quality bench, TRX, and then some more core and stability things, because I'm not, I don't need the 25-year-old washboard abs like the Bowflex commercial. What I really need is functional health and wellness as I go into my 40s and 50s.
Yeah, Gary, I have the same experience. In my basement of my house, I have a treadmill, I have an elliptical, and I have a spin bike. I should have like 2% body fat with the gear that I have, and it's still not happening.
Yes. And I think, one of the things that, like you say, the gym membership and working from the farm, working with our hours. Really, it's all about noting seasonable availability in our schedules and creating routine. And that's one of the most challenging obstacles, not owning the equipment. I think all of us can justify buying some fitness equipment. All of us can justify building a home gym. It's the routines that we create to use it that are most important, especially when our schedules are constantly changing.
That was Gary Chambers of the Fit Farmer podcast. You can find those episodes at realagriculture.com. Great podcast where Gary and I, and sometimes we have guests as well, we talk about things related to the fitness industry. It's sort of like me living through Gary's eyes. Like, Gary's actually really fit, and he's actually an athlete. And he talks about some things. He competes. Like, he goes all over the place in cycling races and things like that. Teaches cross-country skiing all winter. So he's somebody that lives it and just doesn't talk about it. He's got some great advice, some great insight, and brings in some great guests as well. So check it out, the Fit Farmer podcast, and you can check it out at realagriculture.com or download it on iTunes. Comment here from Lara. It's a double whammy to walk around the sprayer or piece of equipment, exercise, and a vehicle check. Hey, you might catch that low tire. Same with the yard. What might you notice? That's actually a really good point. So you're actually working but incorporating some fitness into it at the same time. It's the best of both worlds. Right? Exactly. Good point, Lara. For sure. We also have another clip here with Gary in terms of, okay, so the home equipment isn't exactly like just buying that latest and greatest treadmill isn't exactly going to get you over the hump at all. Not really. We've as Gary said, everybody has a treadmill in their basement that becomes something to dry the towels on as they come out of the wash. I will say this: we got our house. We got a Peloton back in August, and I absolutely love it. There are a number of farmers that are on there and people from the industry. It is a lot of fun in terms of competing against your friends and things like that. So I really enjoyed it. Actually, has got me a little bit more into a bit of a routine when it comes to trying to get more exercise on a regular basis. So I definitely approve of a Peloton purchase if you have high enough internet speed. But Gary says, you don't need to even go that route. You can find stuff around the farm that they're actually taking some of the stuff that's on the farm and they're putting into gyms like CrossFit gyms that people pay to be members of. And you've got this stuff just laying around the farm. So you might as well put it to use. He gives an example of tow ropes. Here we go. Here's Gary Chambers from the Fit Farmer podcast.
Well, I think during the seasons where it's favorable outside, we have a lot of access to amazing equipment. In fact, I have to smile when I watch, these fitness shows on television or the CrossFit trainers or such, where, essentially they're using a oversized braided tow rope, and I'm watching the UFC trainers and they're working at the UFC gym and some of the fittest, strongest athletes in the world. And they're essentially slapping a tow rope up and down, which is something that almost every one of us have more than ample tow ropes around our farms and know exactly where they are and how to use them. Essentially what they're doing is hooking a heavy braided tow rope onto a draw pin and, using that to build functional strength. So, right there alone, we've built that tool. You see them flipping tires and, hitting the tires with sledgehammers, which, obviously none of this stuff you're going to jump into immediately without obviously getting your general fitness up. But these are all amazing activities that we have access to more than enough training on YouTube to use and incorporate into a program. I've got a whole Quonset full of tires. Pick your weight, pick your size, pick whether it's got a rim on it or not. It's endless from that standpoint. And tires really are great because they're such an awkward shape and an awkward size, being used in any number of fashions.
Great stuff. That is Gary Chambers with the Fit Farmer podcast. You can download those episodes at iTunes. Gary mentioned functional training. There are people in cities all across the world paying hundreds of dollars a month to participate in functional training. And look at you. You've got stuff on the farm right there at your disposal, all around the farm to try to stay fit and do things like that. I was watching, I love Last Chance U on Netflix. And in one of the seasons, they had there was a kid that grew up on a farm, a very, very poor family. And he didn't have money to go to a gym to work out before he went to this JUCO to go play football. And so he basically built himself a gym on the farm back home. And I think he was living in Alabama. And it was stuff like Gary just talked about. It was tow ropes. It was old tires. He was doing, there was like an old wood structure, almost like a fuel tank where you would put fuel tanks on. He was doing chin-ups, basically just hanging on to the edge of the wood, things like that. Gary mentioned the flipping of the tires. So functional training, something that, like I said, people are paying a lot of money for. Derek says, new revenue stream for farm gate sales. Come get your farm fresh produce and have a CrossFit workout. There you go. We're always looking for extra revenue streams. Why not? I think that is you're onto something there, Derek, for sure. Want to remind everybody that this time of the year is super, super stressful. There's lots going on. You're trying to get so much done in a day. The days are packed. But do be aware of not only your mental health, but also your physical health during these times, whether it's planting, seeding, or calving season. I think it's really super critical that you are aware and everybody stays healthy and does the best they can. And, it's also Farm Safety Week as well, right? So that plays into this whole discussion at the same time. So thank you so much for tuning in today to RealAg Live and talking a little bit about mental and physical health. Today, also 4:30 Eastern, 2:30 Mountain, we have RealAg Radio on Rural Radio 147. We got a great RealAg Issues panel today, as well as a beef market update. And Kara points out, remember all the terrific resources that are out there regarding this topic. So perfect stuff. Thanks so much, Kara, for chiming in on that. Good reminder. Thanks, everybody, for getting real and getting connected with RealAg Live. And we'll chat again next week. Have a great weekend, everybody. Cheers.